Judge Moru, Sister Pimentel, Cardinal Supich, Father Jenkins, all honored guests, parents, family, friends, and classmates, it's an honor to be here with you to celebrate the journey of the class of 2018. For most of us, there were certainly moments when we wondered whether we'd make it to this momentous day. But fast forward 4 years from Fra Show, and we arrived at Senior Week, awash in sentimentality, rushing to finish our Notre Dame bucket lists, and reflecting on all our experiences here. After all we've accomplished, it may be difficult for us to remember our first few days on campus, when we were just beginning to find our new home under our brilliant Golden Dome. Although we found our rhythms here in our own unique ways, I imagine each of you can remember the first moment you felt connected to the Notre Dame family. I found my rhythm here quite literally, which leads me to make a confession. Luckily, I'm in the right place for one. One of the reasons I chose this world-class university, this pinnacle of higher learning, was the hope that I could somehow be a member of the band of the Fighting Irish. Admittedly, this was quite a naive goal for a high school drummer who had never marched a step in his life. After spending my first night here in Keenan Hall, without air conditioning, I spent my first week here at band camp, learning to march to the beat of the drum major and praying for a miracle. Luckily, someone heard me. Maybe it was our Blessed Mother. Maybe it was Dr. Dye. But to my surprise, I was welcomed into the drum line. As a member of this university's band, I met some of the finest musicians, students, and family I have ever known. As we all found our rhythms and our footing, as we navigated the quads and made our first new friends through dorms, intramurals, clubs, and seminars, we explored what ND had to offer. We met caring professors who were experts in their fields. Dr. Brown and Dr. Paris guided some of us through that gauntlet of Gen Chem and organic, and we learned that getting a B or a C on a test was not necessarily the end of the world. Theology, philosophy, and classics introduced us to works from Augustine's Confessions to Dante's Inferno, and we learned things such as what the end of the world might actually look like. We discovered the interchange, inquiry, and endless self-critical conversation that are central to Notre Dame's mission, and we decided to make this mission our own. After we started getting in step with Notre Dame, we started composing our own futures. We chose our majors, decided our mentors, and surrounded ourselves with people who could help us better articulate our goals. We began to think critically about the issues that inspired us, such as sustainable development, rare diseases, and international affairs. Perhaps it was at this stage, where we began marching to our own beat, that we were most afraid of stumbling. There were challenges that most of us had never encountered. Some of us met these challenges as we engaged in dialogue and debate with our peers and professors, as we tried to push the boundaries of knowledge and expression in the lab or on stage, and as we encountered places and people we had never met before in the service and study abroad settings. I was certainly afraid of stumbling last summer when I participated in the university's summer service learning program through the CSC. I was working with an organization named Libras de Amor. It was a Salvadoran nonprofit focused on pediatric health. Our setting was rural Morazan, a department near the Honduran border, still feeling the effects of a civil war that had ended almost 20 years ago. As a Spanish and pre-med major, I couldn't wait to practice my language skills and put my education to use in a medical setting. But after a month, I was still feeling out of my element. Was I really contributing to my team? I had hoped I could acquire the language of our patients, not only the intonation and dialect of Salvadoran Spanish, but also a shared understanding of our patient's history and identity. But one rather symbolic moment brought me back to a reality. During one of many house visits, after weighing and measuring one of many squirming toddlers, I tried to engage this kid's 12-year-old brother in some conversation. How are you? What subjects do you like in school? What's your favorite football team, Real or Barca? He said very little in response. He mostly smiled and nodded as I babbled on in Spanish. Just when I thought we were getting along pretty well, he turned to his mother and he said, "Mamá, casi no lo entiendo." Roughly translated, this meant, "Mom, I barely understand what this dude is saying." 3 years into my Spanish major at Notre Dame, I was saying the words correctly, but I still wasn't speaking the language. This wasn't only a matter of dialect, but also an issue of engaging in the right kind of dialogue with my surroundings. We all experience times when we struggle to speak as easily as we have before. We stumble and we want to retreat. But invariably, throughout our 4 years here, someone helped us. Our site directors, host moms, team members, hall staff, coaches, priests, professors, principal investigators, parents, they all encouraged us to persevere and to take pride in how far we had come. We owe so much to these teachers, friends, and guides. Sometimes they were just part of our normal routine, but they still made all the difference. At South Dining Hall, for example, we came to count on those daily pick-me-ups from our dear friend John Richard, who always greeted us with a warm and fatherly smile and made sure to remind us if they were serving Carl's chicken that night. Within our studies, our favorite professors worked closely with us as we shaped our futures and listened for our own rhythms. They pushed us as we took exams, revised essays, went to office hours, and practiced speeches. Ultimately, all of these people were our mentors. They provided us with opportunities for reflection, community, and connection. They showed us who we are, what moves us. They encouraged us to keep going and to take risks. They knew that this was the only way for us to keep engaging with the issues that matter to us most. One day in El Salvador, as I struggled mightily to find my purpose, our team leader, Claudia, asked me to take a considerable risk. She wanted me to lead Libras de Amor's equivalent of a Mommy and Me music and movement class. I, of all people, would be leading moms and kids in song and dance, and then talking with them about the importance of music to brain development. Did she see something I didn't see in myself at the time? I hesitated initially. I was afraid to disappoint her. But then I called upon a lesson that Our Lady's University has taught all of us: the need to have faith and to take a risk. So I set about learning a childhood's worth of Salvadoran nursery rhymes at a record pace. When I finally stood before the circle of mothers and their babies, who were always happy to see me, the songs we sang together began to unlock a deeper rhythm within me. As we shared in song, I also earned the trust of the patients we cared for. As we opened up and shared our experiences, I learned more than I could have ever imagined about life in Morazan. Not only its stories of war and poverty and need, but also of hope and resilience. I began speaking the language of my surroundings. I found a new dimension of my faith, a new calling to public health and to Spanish, both lifelong rhythms I wanted to keep playing. And in my studies, especially with the guidance from my mentors in Spanish and pre-professional studies, psychology and theology, I was able to continue learning more about this faith. Notre Dame has taught us to nurture and develop our faith with every risk we've taken. At times, this faith has called us to sing with a loud voice, from the triumphant hymns of Holy Week in the Basilica to the passionate chants of our activist groups. At other moments, it has called us to remain silent and to listen for the tunes that others are playing. 3 years ago, when we lined Holy Cross Drive and silently accompanied Father Hesburgh's funeral procession, we were listening together for the charge Hesburgh had entrusted to us to continue our endless conversation by listening to our neighbors, grasping their hands, and extending our hearts, to imagine beyond our comfort zones, and to take risks. This was the song Father Ted was, and still is, playing on repeat. All of these experiences have strengthened our faith. We have listened more closely for purpose and direction, and we have responded more strongly by working harder to achieve our goals. Today, we have found our own voices. We have attuned ourselves to our own surroundings. We have learned Notre Dame's rhythms, and we are ready to go out into the world with our own rhythms. But we must not consider today the end of our Notre Dame song. As the term commencement suggests, we are not here to pack up and abandon our instruments, our tools, our books. We are only finishing the warm-up. We are the band, and we are preparing to trot out of that tunnel for the pregame show. The moments leading up to this trot are full of energy, but also uncertainty. Is my shake-a-wan straight? What if I miss a step? What if my trot becomes a trip and a headfirst splat onto the turf? Graduates, are these not questions we're asking ourselves right now? As we march on into our fields of work and study and service, we take off our mortarboards and don new uniforms that may feel unsettling. We take on performances much more challenging, but much more necessary than ever, pursuing social justice in healthcare, countering the movements to dehumanize immigrants and refugees, pushing all of the boundaries of all of our disciplines. It is easy to miss a step. As the stakes become higher, it becomes much easier to stumble than before. But we must not be afraid to stumble if we hope to continue singing Notre Dame's lyrics and playing its rhythm. We must not be afraid to expose ourselves to new rhythms and lyrics that may appear foreign at first, but that can transform us later. As we prepare to step off into our futures, think back to our first Mass as the class of 2018, when we rather awkwardly wrapped our arms around each other and swayed to our alma mater for the very first time. What felt strange and clumsy then is now second nature to us, a natural expression of love for each other and for this extraordinary community. And today, we are charged with a mission to be ambassadors of Notre Dame's lyrics, its song, its rhythm. Like the band members eagerly waiting to burst out of that tunnel, we too have a tradition to preserve. This tradition is too valuable not to maintain, not to share with others. Are we ready to keep this pulse alive? Graduates, it is time for us to march fearlessly to this wonderful beat. As we proceed with confidence and hope from our crossroads, let us take time to acknowledge the words boldly inscribed above its iconic tunnel. Here come the Irish. Class of 2018, here we come.